Okay, here we go. It's 3:33 a.m. on the 18th of January, 2022.
And I just woke up. And I woke up with these questions.
Okay.
And I woke up with these questions and asking
Mhm.
for direction. And I hadn't. And what I woke up asking for is, what is it that I need to be brave for?
Hmm. Mhm.
What is it that I need to be ridiculous for? What is it that I need to be uh, like um, riding backwards out
Mhm.
for unmasked, going down the rabbit hole for, and it was so funny is that what were the things that I love the most that I do,
Mhm.
and so I saw uh, what were the things that I've been looking at the most
Mhm.
visually and reading the most.
Mhm.
So I've been reading about birds' feathers,
Mhm.
all the different kinds of feathers that it takes for a bird to actually live, be in flight, uh, in any kind of way, land. Uh, what kind of birds does he need? What kind of feathers does he need, even to eat?
Mhm.
And it was like owls have these bristle feathers that are around their mouths
Uh huh.
and around their eyes, and the bristle in some birds like the blue jay
Mhm.
has it around his bill,
Mhm.
and the bristle feathers help them eat
Uh huh.
to like an animal that does eat, put his face into a bird that does put his face into a carcass,
Uh huh.
and those bristle feathers help that bird
Uh
be
huh.
able to do that.
Mm.
The different feathers that actually help the bird fly itself, the ones that
Mhm.
make up the wing part that's like fingers that
Mhm.
the bird uses to like flap his wings,
Mhm.
and it's like, we're talking about flight, and we've been talking about, like baby birds learning to fly like the new year.
Uh huh.
um, I've been uh, I've been fascinated with this book, and then also I've been looking at all the pictures of my that we've taken in the present and in the past,
Mhm.
and and then I've been looking at all the images on Instagram on the reel, looking at all these images of people who actually are like birds that put their face into the carcass.
Mhm.
People that are actors that that long to be a certain role, and
Mhm.
and the desire one has to make an impact, not only in the world but an impact with inside themselves.
Mhm.
The many of them talk about that, how when they enter a role that it changes them, and and they're changed actually forever ever by the different
Mhm.
roles that they take.
Mhm.
And then us, the roles in our daily life that we enter to somehow have a dream. And then I thought about that, the collages, and why I love collages, and I've been making collages, lots of
Mhm.
collages, and I've been taking the everyday and the sacred and the different images of our work and even ourselves in our home and our place, putting them all together to create a point. a point in time that opens a window to insight, uh, a, a gathering of different images that all at once open a window, rather than just one image combining them, and they're like a conversation. Like a collage is like a conversation, and the meditational collages are like conversations of that sit still within you and open a window. And I sat deeply with this, and I had done a lot of them when I was in the place of this vertigo. When I started recovering just enough that I didn't have to, I could move around. I could actually sit and do that in the with the iPad, and not have to move around and create. And I asked, I said, "What is it? How do I? What am I preparing for?" And I heard, "What are the things you love?" And I love video. I love video. I love film. So I love the pictures moving quickly to tell a story. I love storytelling. And so I thought, and all at once I saw, well, take all of these things you're looking at, collage them into a film. And it's a storytelling. And the things, it was even like, it was ridiculous. It was like taking, like, Spider-Man. Fascinated all at once with the film Spider-Man. The character, the young man that is becomes Spider-Man, to take this role on, to make an impact in the world. And he's been working with this for a long time. He is a dancer. He played Billy Elliot on Broadway. But he's a dancer since he was young. He's part of a family of, I think, 4 boys or 5. And he is from Britain. And the whole thing about spider webs and spiders, and the ability to trace a tract with a spider web, and his innocence, just immense innocence. And then looking at pictures of panthers and lions, and then looking at pictures of different films, the Avengers, and people that play roles of superpowers, and the fascination of our time with anything that someone can do to such a depth that they look beyond reality, and they look impossible, and they even look ridiculous. And then I've been looking at pictures of flowers, and our flowers in the garden, and up close and farther away. And we've been looking at pictures of our art, and looking at pictures of our art throughout the years, and then pictures that cut the pieces of the art into separate parts where you're zeroed in. And then looking at things in our work, like the CDO code, and where I have a close-up of the Japanese lantern as it's drying, and it's becoming, from the orange flower, it's becoming where you can see through it. And it has this one seed that's fascinating, but it's actually poisonous. And then looking at the passion flower, and then pictures, collaging pictures of flowers in our work, and then our gatherings with all of our family, and close-up of the things we love. And I thought, well, what do you do with how? And so the ridiculous is kind of pulling those together into collages. And then somehow, I don't know if it's actually doing it, it's just that sequence that when I woke up with that and those questions, they just came to mind. And I thought, well, how in the world you put that together? And it's all going on in our time right now. And how everything does fit like a puzzle, what's inside of us and what's outside of us, and in the world. And that's what I woke up with. And it was taking these individual pictures in my mind and then taking ones that come up organically for me, and then somehow making maybe albums with just random pictures, putting them in the album, and then taking that album and actually putting them into different odd kinds of collages, and then taking those collages and putting them into a slideshow of some kind. But it would be not just a mix of our work, but all these different things that you and I have been looking at. And I keep thinking, why am I looking at all this on things on a reel? Because it doesn't seem related.
I love it. It's very puzzling. I mean, the act of puzzle. It's puzzling. So it's like your collages fit pieces together. Your vignettes put different elements together.
It's like the box I used to work with.
Puzzle pieces, and fitting them in how they fit. And a puzzle, the shapes are, somewhat random, but as you rotate them and move them around, they fit and form a bigger picture. And that's, the world is in a puzzling time.
Well, I know the power of film, that you and I know the power of story, and then the power of film, that you can, just like The Discovery of Witches, those are huge books.
Yeah.
And how they bring them in, like this last book, into 7 episodes.
Yeah.
Is remarkable, but because you can visually see it, the words they all come together into visual.
Yeah.
And that's the detail and the beauty of a book, that it creates a visual, and then a visual speeds up the book.
Yeah.
And accelerates it. And so when you watch a film, one of the most beautiful parts is all the detail that's in the visual, in the background, in the clothing, in the costuming, in the clothing, in the sewing of the fibers, in the background, in the setting. All of that is part of the storytelling. And if you see a film about something, it will accelerate your life. Whatever story it tells will be all set inside of an hour or two. And in that hour and two, you have traveled through time. Sometimes hundreds of years you travel through time. If it's a film on archaeology, you travel through everything that creates that archival site and what's in it. And you couldn't even begin to travel there in that kind of accelerated speed, except through film. And so film has a tremendous potential of time travel. And it makes you capable of putting together humongous puzzles.
Yeah. This is all you woke up with?
Yeah.
Is this it?
I know.
I mean, that's huge. Oh my God. And a lot of people just wake up and all they have is like, where's the bathroom? But
Oh, that's
you
my usual.
Yeah. You really awakened with like this whole treasure trove. This
But I love what you said
unrolling
about puzzle.
scroll. Yeah.
I hadn't thought about
it's
that.
The puzzle and the puzzlement and the puzzling nature of
That's one of our books in Susanna's
life.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The puzzling nature of
how
a
life
day
tells
or
itself.
a life or a eon or and how, what's the thread? Where's the thread reach back to? Where does it reach forward to? What's woven next to it? What's woven into it? It's just, these are good questions. My God, I love it. So, tabletop conversations at 3:33 in the morning can be quite adventurous. Oh, my
Well,
gosh, honey.
What do you think about? Well, the puzzle
What do you think about?
is like with visual. You can put together much bigger puzzles, much bigger stories.
And I think that's the
more
struggle we have
characters.
because, we've talked about it. Like our attempt to create this website that anybody else listening to this has come to hear it. But we are attempting to tell a much bigger story than that we have the. We have a part of this bigger story that is unfolding and has been unfolding for, now look at this, 33 years that we've been together. And this story that we're talking about here on this tabletop conversation was at 3:33.
Yeah, I just
all
thought of
this
that.
mixes of threes. There's a purpose in that. Now, most people may just look at that and go, "Oh, that's silly," but we know better. We've seen the synchronicity of numbers and events occur over and over again and fold in on themselves, that we know there's something afoot. There is a mystery that is unfolding for us, and
it's to put together
it's to find it.
The ridiculous,
yeah,
and the sacred, and the and then
that
the
is the
eventual
Kokopelli
of
that
life.
you,
Yeah, I
that
thought
you
that was
had,
really
the Kokopelli, the fool riding backwards on the horse.
That comes out into the light from the mysterious, the mystery, and the sacred, and takes, it comes from where it was out of the sacred and comes out into the light, and it's looking ridiculous.
Yeah.
Everything is turned upside down and inside out, and the light comes out into the light and is unmasked in a world that is trying to breathe in safer content.
Yeah.
And is afraid of the content of what's inside the air and the breath.
Yeah.
And are we safe? Are we going to make it with this content? And as we are moving along, the content itself is changing, and it was a very scary content.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of mixing in with everything else, and it's coming up with different content, but the content less boding, less foreboding. And then it rounds up again, and it's a new picture, and there's still things that are scary about it, but it has lost some of its original scariness, and then it rotates again, and then it loses more of it.
Each time it's dilution and dissolvement is every day that it moves forward.
And like you said, we
It's-
go to night and we go to bed at night,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole world is dreaming and trying to dream
Yeah.
up a
A
solution,
solution.
a new
Yeah.
content
Yeah.
that we could all breathe in.
Yeah. They're all brave souls, and when they wake up back into the suit they were pushed into, set into, grew into, were forced into, were whatever the situation is in the daytime that they, so many fall back asleep to the the deep creative desire for the solution.
Well, that's why.
Because they're so busy just trying to survive. But in their sleep, we are all brave souls trying to find a solution to this whole global situation that is presenting itself as this pandemic. But what is it really? What is virus? What is virus? What is this barbed attachment like a thistle that will cling to the cloth of your clothing as you walk through a field, but it's being carried. It's part of something that carries something further along. What?
Water.
Oh yes. So it's a big puzzle that we.
I love the way you took virus.
When you're vying for something, when you're striving for something,
Well, competing people,
Competing
all
with
the
something.
competition in the world,
maybe
the
it's
money and
the outcome of a competition that is
well, also when you go to
put
sleep,
people into a box, put into a position where they have to wake up to something bigger. I'm sorry. You were saying?
no, trying to put themselves into a,
What kind of box?
Bigger.
One under the ground, or one above ground that is a vignette that they can dream from?
well, I was thinking about this world's fascination with superheroes,
Uh-huh.
and the superheroes, a lot of them can fly.
Yeah.
They don't. They don't have feathers that you see like a bird,
Right.
but they have ability to move from one position through the air quickly and accelerated.
Mm-hmm.
And they're, as you know, we grew up with like Superman
Right.
and then there was more stories, and as Marvel.
Before that, it was the hot air balloon and the Wright brothers and all
Well,
this
even before that,
idea
there's
of
the
flight.
angels.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's the beings of sacred stories in lots of different cultures. Beings that can fly with or without wings,
Bringing
or with vehicles that they fly in. So there's this.
like lighter than air,
Well,
light,
there's this.
enlightenment.
When you get to the miraculous, it's like you have to get to speed,
Yeah.
and so it's almost like at night, like you know how you kind of step out of your body and you fly, that you're at that time you're like a superhero, or you have kind of that thought ability in the story. And I wonder if that's like like you dream of angels and you dream of flying yourself. So you dream of being like these beings that are now in all the stories from the comic books and the imagination of
And why that's
Marvel.
so.
Who's the man? What's his name?
Stan Lee.
Huh?
Stan Lee from Marvel.
Uh-huh.
The guy that passed away.
Oh, Stan Lee.
Stan Lee.
Yeah,
Yes.
and
Uh-huh.
and you think about there's such a fascination about that when we were doing Salon years ago, at least 10 years ago, and then that was 10 years we did Salon. It was during 9/11, and we have this big long in the middle of the kitchen, long table.
Kitchen Island.
Yeah, yeah, Kitchen Island.
Mm-hmm.
And what we did during the salon is we got these almost like these open up children's kind of like little tabletop theaters, you know, that they could have. You could open it up and they could have all kinds of scenes, little
Yeah.
houses and little, you know, schools and little airport and all that. And we'd gotten them probably on a yard sale, and we got those out and we put them, and from our kids too, we put them on that island where we served everybody food. We were feeding the creative spirit, and so with the food we had these opened up, so as they went to get their food they were practically inside these children little theaters from Bishop Price or all different things.
Yeah.
And we put this assortment of superheroes, and it was like, where are the superheroes in this time? And we had like, you know, Superman and Spider-Man. There was a Spider-Man and Superman and what were some of the others? There were different colors.
Oh, yeah.
And it was funny because no one said a word about it being ridiculous. They were all kind of speechless,
They just took
but
it in.
felt connected. And in a time in Maine, people were very independent, but it was a place where they could connect, and they had nowhere to connect after this, except at the salon, and they just acted like it was normal. And that, like, where are the superheroes? And I think that ever since then, as a world, we've almost like been looking for something coming out of the sky to save us,
Yeah.
or something coming out of the sky to destroy us, like, you know, nuclear bombs and all that stuff. And I think that's why the Avengers and the Marvel, all the different characters have been so big in these years,
Yeah.
and seem to be becoming bigger. You know, it's like they keep like having new ones, and so in a way we're trying to also find our way to becoming that in this world itself. So it's like coming out of that. For me, it's like coming out of that life of sacred and rich and ritual within sacred, within a church or in a religion, and then going down under it and seeing what it was, how it did become, and also seeing what kind of structure that is, and then finding the bones of the whole world, the sacred of the world, and studying them, and then coming in that dream that I talked about. It's like becoming almost ridiculous, and coming out of that out into the light, and it's like Walmart is like, you know, one of the big millionaires, you know, that everybody's, or is, you know, in the past has talked about, and have been really, so this place of, you know, like large amounts of corporations and large amounts of money and very, very wealthy men like, you know, Elon Musk and Gates and all of them. And it's like looking down at the bottom of them. They're like under the church that they've become, and what makes that up, and then the sacred in our work and the connection with the depth of the sacred, and then in that dream I talked about yesterday, I come out unmasked and into all this light. It's almost like that part of life being exposed more, like being more. And so in all the stories of this of the superheroes. It's not just you being a superhero in your dreams. It's like coming out into the world and being exposed and being expected to do superhero things.
Yeah.
And these superheroes are more like in Spider-Man, he was like in the end he was exposed as the young man that he was, and it's a whole different ball game when you got this suit on and nobody knows who you are, and then all at once, who you are, you're just this regular person, and and you've come to something, an ability by mistake, and that fascinates me.
Yeah.
And that with becoming a person, a regular person, how does a regular person someday become a president? Or how does a regular person become a filmmaker or an actor or a speaker or a great person that creates inspiration? And how does, you used to do all the poetry about the guy at the big corporation in his office, and he's all dressed up like everyone should dress to be in that position, and he's got his father's clothes on, and but still inside he's this little boy, and how each one of them should have a box of crayons in their very official desk, and that is a great story. And the thing is how many people out in the world are still that person, that child, and then others like us that have are asked to move out things that are more ridiculous, not as profound. How can we actually become that? How does someone that feels they feel small, and they've been more or less lived kind of a small life, but all at once that small life builds into a more complex life, and then all at once you see, oh, that's why I studied that one thing. That one thing becomes the cogs in something much more complex later.
Yeah. That is really good.
And for myself, I feel I've done great things, but they're in very small places, and there's some kind of flight that's trying to happen, and you and I are the complexity of our conversation, our creativity, and our union is like it makes us whole. If I don't have the piece, you got the piece. If you don't have the piece,
Then
I
you
got
have
the
the
piece.
Yeah.
We're like feathers on one bird's body that put it all together, and that bird can lift off and lift up.
Wow.
So it's almost like the superheroes are very apropos
To this time.
and the Spider-Man movie that I haven't seen it yet, but it's the whole thing of a complexity coming in to life when you're young, like that whole thing, and that spider represents creativity. The spider's web represents creativity. And this time and in ancient times, the spider was a magical totemic.
Yeah.
And so we have Superman, and we have some of them, Iron Man, and we have, who are all the others?
Captain America
and Thor and all of them.
Thor and
And then all at
Ant-Man
once
and
you
the
have
Flash
this very young person that that gets bitten by a spider
Mm-hmm.
that's really
Excuse me.
profoundly different, and has a profound experience which changes him and gives him a power that these other older superpower men have, or women, and he has to handle that in a much younger
As a kid,
body
yeah.
as a kid,
Yeah.
and he begins to be able to stand right alone with the others, and that's amazing to me, because he like represents kind of like the small me that has been given this
The
profound
big task.
the big task
Yeah.
and these profound skills,
Yeah.
and but they're skills that it's just it's like he's become the Arachne,
Yeah.
and but he's also a simple human being,
Yeah.
and I think it's a really powerful story right now for the young people, especially, and for me too. And the young man that plays him, Tom Holland, he's different from the other Spider-Mans that they've done before. He has this brightness that just is just it's just him. He is very bright, and he comes from, you know, a family of brothers, and they all got they kind of look alike, and he has a little ears that stick out. But he's very genuine, and you and I wondered why in the world we'd be interested in the Spider-Man, but it's this power of creativity,
Yeah.
and this power of storytelling, and the power of connecting these fibers.
Yeah. The power and the strength and the movement of those threads.
Yes, the strength and the movement.
Create his movement through a landscape.
Oh my God, you're right. And so how in collaging, it's like that. It's like you take like the threads of the spider web, and you connect one thread to the other to make this connected, not broken chain, but a
Yeah.
connected chain, and all at once it was like, yeah, you put the ridiculous together, and that's what gives you a great power in the sacred. And by putting it into film with sound, it's like it all at once, it can accelerate.
Yeah.
Because we know if you watch one film in a film that's a story in any time, you travel there. Prehistorically, when we went to Disneyland, they had that huge exhibit of dinosaurs, and we went in, and it was like, it was unreal. It smelled like the world at that time.
Yeah.
And it was so visceral, and you watched people, past life patterns just shedding off of them, because it's like you can go through lots of past lives just watching one film, one story, and that's why story is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Threading the consciousness of a lot into a small place, a corrugated spot.
What do you think about that?
I think this is a marvelous awakening in the middle of the night. I think it's really fascinating how illumination comes out of sleep, out of dreaming, how light comes out of the dark.
I love that. I could have just laid there with those thoughts and conversation, but I knew I needed, all at once I knew I needed to get up and start,
Fluff it up. Fluff it out.
weave it together, try it out and listen to it. And I love that first question is, what is it that I need to be brave for?
Such a wonderful question.
And the whole answer is, what is it that you love? Take it all. Start connecting it. But I never thought of asking that question until after the dream I had yesterday.
Oh yeah.
And the biggest
During the
piece
napping time.
was what is it that I need to be brave for? What is it right just around the corner that I'm afraid to hold hands with? But it's out of my past, all the different strengths.
Yeah.
Connecting that to my future, even as ridiculous as it looks.
And they gave me the imagery just then of in Avatar with the mycelial threads.
Ooh.
Like when they rode the horses and they took their braid and connected it with
Oh my
the
gosh.
horse's braided mane and how it made that connection. It's like your present reaching
love
into
that.
your future, and those fibers around the corner are reaching towards each other, and as they connect, they braid themselves into each other.
Yes.
And then it has that fibrous strength.
And a conversation is possible.
Yeah, and then the consciousness moves forward. Is shared.
And they can collaborate with Gaia in that way.
Yeah.
Through those mycelial fibers.
And any one person that is standing on the surface of Gaia, if they think that they have more consciousness than that being, then they're quite mistaken, because she has so much information to share. It's just astounding. But you have to want to make the connection. You want that braided mycelial connection to give you the nutrients that you really do need. So when you make that connection, then it starts pouring into you. When you had that with the farm, with all those fields of flowers and plants that were there through your visioning, and then you wove them together. You've been doing that your whole life.
Yeah, kind of a storytelling of sorts. Creating
Very much.
Valley Hills, very fairy tale.
Yeah.
Like that first box in my bedroom that I would put all kinds of stories.
Yeah.
Things that didn't even necessarily match up, and I'd put them
It's
all
almost
together.
like a clue to people. If they take a moment and remember their childhood, and what were some of the things that stood out to them that they loved, you always hear childhood stories where there's some kind of thing they had to overcome, or some kind of hurt that happened, or this difficulty or that, and those are, of course, always unfortunately there. But what were the things that were just made you fascinated when you were little, when you're growing up? Something that you just over and over again came to that you just wanted to know more about, or something that opened you up in a different way? But if you can just think back to those times, what were those things? And you have that lucky remembrance of, even though it was a time and you grew up in a time that of having a loving family, but they didn't have the luxury of a prosperous overflowing of abundance financially, but you had this richness inside of
Felt
where
abundant.
you were. They gave you that, and that's because of you and your family and what was going on around you. But you found that box. You found the story making tool. You made it a story making tool. Or it shared with you what it was, and you were alert enough, awake enough to see its potential, and you're looking into the box of your own potential. So even when you were little, you were making these stories.
Most of them were square.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's the craft of filmmakers. That's the craft of writers. That's the craft of creatives that try to bring into some kind of frame a context that their story can,
Like poetry.
yeah, that story can travel through.
Mm.
You know?
I think that's what I always loved when we came together, was your poetry.
Thank you.
And how you could reach into the depth of feelings of love that I had never experienced.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was reaching towards you.
A poem is like a box filled with words.
A box of delights.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and you never know
A
what's
box
going
to
to come
travel
into
upon.
a poem because there's no real rules.
Mm-mm.
Well, there's less rules than that used to have.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's really, when you introduced me to that world of poetry, I'd never been there before.
Mm-hmm. But it was all inside you. That's why it resonated. There was that connecting fiber was there.
Oh, this is kind of good.
Mm-hmm.
You can listen to this again later.
Yeah.
I think
we've got this part of the conversation.
Yeah, it's usually about a half an
morning.
hour.
Yep, let's see, where are we now? We are, this is a bit longer. This is 50 minutes, just about,
Oh my goodness.
coming on it. So it just flew past, flew by, flew inside us, and we're inside of it. So thank you for listening, and we will speak more, have a yellow tabletop theater conversation again soon.